Today we visit r/AskReddit to see the darker side of the thread. What is the most ducked up thing you've ever done? If you want to see the funnier side of this thread, you can visit the video in the card above or the link in the description. Also, make sure to comment your opinion on my new voiceover and if I should continue it. Also, how I can improve in chess, because as you watch this video, you'll see I'm pretty bad. With that, sit back and enjoy. Matched with a fake profile on Hinge, thought with my dick. She was a video caller scammer of sorts. She recorded me with my dick out and blackmailed me. A police complaint scaled her and helped me settle her. By far the most ducked up thing I've ever done. Bros, don't think with your dick and use your head. Edit 1. This person called me on my phone when I threatened a police complaint and sounded like a female voice. That is why I used the term her. Edit 2. By settled her, I mean I drafted a cybercrime complaint and sent her the draft without actually submitting it online. I guess the person was an amateur as she lost her shit. Surgical tech here. One of my patients was at a very tail end of pregnancy, but the baby wound up dying. She was in denial and refused care and carried the dead baby for almost a month. I was on the team to get her a C-section when she finally came to get it out. The baby's skin was like wet paper. Any pressure anywhere caused it to tear. The muscles underneath had started to rot. The bones were mostly broken down to the point of providing no structure, so it moved like a baby-shaped water balloon. Face looked like something from a horror movie. Smell was at least the worst I've ever experienced. Room was eerie silent, including the mother who was awake normally for C-sections. Been a surgical tech for over 6 years, and that was by far the most ducked up thing I've ever seen or done. That case was almost 4 years ago and still pops into my mind regularly. For some reason when I was reading this, I got the mind of Voldemort when he's in like the heaven thing, when Harry Potter's in the heaven thing with Gandalf. Not Gandalf. Oh my god, Dumbledore, not Gandalf. Oof. Dumbledore, and he sees a little thing in the corner. That's what I picture for this, just with less structure. Anyways, next story. When I was in the army, I got pretty low. I put the barrel of my rifle in my mouth and pulled the trigger. Gun jammed. Sometimes I wonder if that was a miracle or a curse. Similarly, I owe my life to shitty mill surplus ammo. Came home from the war, months later with my birthday, put my Mosin in my mouth and towed the trigger and click, biggest sigh, lots of tears, and then rejoined my birthday party. It made me really contemplating quantum immortality and all of that, and if in that timeline everyone heard the blast. Mosins are pretty loud, and then saw the aftermath. Had to kill a newborn baby rabbit because my dog got a hold of it and ducked it up super bad, and I didn't want to watch it suffer, so I thought, destroy the brain, that will work. So I stabbed in the head, only that didn't work, and he started to try and run, and I panicked. And I picked up a big concrete block and squished him. It still had me ducked up, and that was like 7 years ago. Lol. So awful. Edit. I'm not a psychopath though. Lol is more like a chuckling awkward way to keep me from crying. More like a heh. I'm a very emotional female, and it was very awful to have to do what I did, and it still haunts me. One time, a girl I had minimal interest in, but had mutual shared friends with, had sent me a text basically saying, I had feelings for you, and I'd like to explore where that takes us. I then typed up a message to my good friend saying, please kill me now. I think she wants a relationship. Keep in mind this girl was nice and all, but just wasn't my type. I'm also a people pleaser, so the thought of having to turn down to someone makes me uncomfortable, and I dreaded having to tell her I wasn't interested. I've been turned down before. It sucks. I don't want to do that to someone else. I did not mean the please kill me now as a knock on her as a person, but as a I don't want to be in this situation. You can probably guess what happened though. Yep, I sent the please kill me now text to the girl. After immediately realizing what I did and thinking for about 30 seconds how I could have possibly talked my way out of it not sounding like the biggest jerk in the entire world, I realized there was no good way to spin it. I decided to just try my best to explain to her that it wasn't meant to be blah blah blah. I also said that she didn't deserve blah 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 blah. Doesn't matter, I still cringe about it to this day. Picking up a dude's head that fell off his rotting corpse when I worked at a mortuary transport company is definitely up there. Also picking up a 5-year-old kid who had a bookcase fall on him, feeling all the broken bones moving in his teeny body ducked me up good. If we're talking behavior, I definitely attempted to ruin friends' relationship in my teenage years because I was a bitter and lonely asshole. Seeing them happy only made me feel worse, so I wanted to drag them down to my level. Luckily, their relationships were strong than my bullshit in most cases. Edit. I've gotten a few messages asking questions about the mortuary job and whether or not they were the worst calls I've ever had, so I figured I'd post an old comment from a different thread. Trigger warning for suicide. Witnessed the woman pretty much break over the headless body of her son. I used to work for a mortuary livery service. I mostly picked up from retirement homes and from people's houses where they had hospice nurses watching over them, but would occasionally get calls from local coroner's office? I think so. One night, I was sent out to a call not far from where I lived. The place was surrounded by cops. They led me and my partner to the bathroom, where a guy had blown his head off with his shotgun in the shower. It was a mess, as you can probably imagine, but by this point, it wasn't super out of the ordinary for me. I picked up suicides before, as well as overdoses, decomposition, kids, so I was pretty numb to it. We got the guy into a bag and loaded him up in the gurney, and we were out the door at the worst possible time. Dude's mother was outside now, having been called by someone, I guess. She started hysterically screaming, which immediately put me on edge. I had dealt with crying and mourning loved ones every day. Even when I had to pick up the kid, his parents were ushered into another room. But blood-curdling screams right in front of me? This was a first. A cop tried to grab her, but she managed to wiggle away from him, running up the gurney and pretty much collapsing onto it, sobbing uncontrollably and babbling nonsense. It was the most raw and unfiltered emotion I've ever seen. She was clutching onto the gurney and like rocking back and forward to the point that I had to grab the cart before the whole thing toppled over onto the front lawn. I stood there for another 5 minutes with a front row seat to unravel agony with no way to really hide from it before a cop had stepped in and tried to pull her away, saying that we had to take him. She eventually relented and we got the body loaded into the car, and from there it was business as usual. The reason that one stuck with me so much is because, well, it was almost like looking into my own future. I was suicidal at the time, and a shotgun in the shower was exactly how I planned to do it. Only reason I was waiting was because I wanted to be in my own place, so my roommates didn't have to find me. The dude was even around my age. It was a weird feeling of almost like standing over my own body, and when I saw the woman's breakdown, I could only see my own mom. It was at the moment that I decided that my mom would never scream and cry like that because of something I did. While the feelings are definitely still there and I still think about death a lot, that night was when I decided I would never do it, no matter how much it hurts. What sucks is that it almost made the pain worse. Before I knew I had an out, a way to make this miserable shit end. But after that, I just felt trapped. Don't want to live, but now I can't die. Duck. There was a kid who had CP, okay? Cerebral palsy, not child porn, okay? Get your head out of the gutter. In high school, who would hit on my sister all the time. Granted, he didn't have a chance. Ducked up in itself to say, but he was a dick. He would use his disability as a crutch to be a perverted asshole. One time, he would ask her to help him adjust his chair's seatbelt just to pull down her shirt, exposing her breasts to the class. He thought it was hilarious. The school administration didn't do anything about it. So my friend and I forged a letter saying we were his parents picking him up after school, so he wouldn't get on the bus, and we beat the shit out of him in the parking lot. Yes, I got in legal trouble. Looking back on it, I do regret how I handled it. It's definitely the most ducked up thing I've ever done. I was not trying to save a 6-year-old child after they got him out of the pool, since we got laws about victim responsibility. If you save a victim from danger, you'll be fully responsible for their well-being, economically even, so you have to pay for their treatment, and the family doesn't have to move a finger. They are even entitled to sue you. This is to prevent random people who don't know what they are doing to apply the wrong treatment. Kind of ironic in hindsight. The only experience I had was a single class in all my life about first aid that did not stick with my memory on how to do things properly about 7 years before the incident. So even if I tried, it was likely I would screw up and damage the kid. I can't even properly measure my own strength sometimes and can break things easily. I can't even think what would happen if I lightly tried one of those movements to pump out water from the lungs on a kid. I could break the ribcage on accident. Apparently the other 30 to 50 people thought the same, or not thinking at all, so they all just encircled the kid moaning, crying, but doing nothing. Someone called the emergency services, but they arrived about 20 minutes later. The kid was already dead when they arrived. Not gonna lie, this still haunts me a bit today. It makes me feel a little better to unwind about this sometimes. I'm not completely sure if I could have done something without making things even worse. This is bad. When I was 17 or 18, I was in high school, I used to have a bad drinking problem. Like, very bad. I made some dangerous decisions that not only could have resulted in killing me, but killing others. It's no excuse, but I was going through some bad shit at home and struggling with PTSD, so self-medicating. One time, I was driving drunk in a parking lot and backed into another SUV car, breaking the headlight. Might have messed up the bumper, I don't know, and I just drove away. I told my parents someone hit me in a parking lot and popped out the dent in my car with hot water, so you couldn't even tell. I'm 25 now and doing a lot better, and it still eats me alive. I wish I could somehow repay that person for trouble I caused, but I don't know them. I never drove drunk again after high school, and wouldn't even get behind the wheel after a single drink now. It was a horribly immature irresponsibility, an awful thing I did, and yeah, I feel very guilty as I should. I did drugs at work. I was a teacher, I had a toddler, I was teaching 212 high school kids, I was going through my last 2 classes for a master program. My dad was dying of cancer, my husband was working a ton of new job, and I just didn't have it in me to do it all. Snorting Adderall saved my hide. I would crush 4 pills throughout the day and snort it every couple of hours. It gave me an energy boost and I was able to focus on what needed doing. At night, I would take a sleeping pill, then do it all over again the next day. Edit. This was 15 to 16 years ago, and I only did it for 1 school year. The reason I didn't take them orally is because I didn't get that rush of energy that allowed me to complete everything I needed to do. Thank you for those of saying that it wasn't a big deal. I'm still embarrassed I did it. I would probably have been in huge trouble if I would have been caught, but at the time I was so drained from everything, I did what I felt would be helpful. I'm a recovering heroin addict, 9 years sober. Congratulations. And I have a lot of stories of how much of a shit person I used to be. I really can't gauge what my worst moment would be, but I can post a story or 2 definitely. One day I was flat broke and on my last bag of dope. My neighborhood pharmacist just recently was arrested for a DUI. Brainstorming, I came up with an idea to try and get some pills at the ER. I still had medical insurance at the moment, so I thought this was the best option. My buddy came by and we were hanging outside smoking cigarettes and trying to figure out how to get hurt. Just enough to get some pills, but not enough to actually have permanent repercussions. There was this big ass cinder block beside the garage, and I decided to drop it on my foot in the hopes of just breaking a toe at most. I stood outside on the concrete patio for about 5 minutes with the cinder block trying to heighten myself up enough to drop it on my foot. I couldn't do it. Psyched myself out too much. I told my friend that he would have to do it for me, and he said okay. He held it out about waist height and dropped it on my foot. I knew it wasn't enough damage, so I told him that he needed to put it up higher and drop it again, to which he did. So I go to the hospital and tell them that I was carrying boxes downstairs to the basement and dropped them when I slipped on the bottom step. So I go back, get x-rays, and I'm in the waiting room. Doctor comes in and tells me that I've torn numerous ligaments in my foot, and it probably would have hurt less if I just broken my foot altogether. Hearing this, I was excited, thinking, yes, I just scored. I didn't care about the pain in the moment, just happy that I potentially scored. They released me and handed me a prescription. They wrote me a prescription for ibuprofen, 800 milligrams. Defeat. TLDR. I dropped a brick on my foot, trying to break it, and get pills from the ER. Doesn't work. With that, I thank you for sticking around to the end of the video, because I highly doubt very few people are. But if you're here, I greatly appreciate it, and I don't know. You must like the video, so you might as well just like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you like my new voiceover. It might be a little while before I do my next voiceover, as I want to wait for the feedback and see what people have to say, so I have time to make the new video and improve and get better. Also comment how I can improve in chess, because, yeah, gosh. Well, if you want to continue watching my content or the funnier side of this thread, check the videos above, and until next time.